Thank you very much. Once again, good afternoon, everybody. And once again, let me say that it's nice to be here in Trieste, nice to be here in Italy, and especially because we have a very close cooperation and very honest, concrete, and friendly support by Italy on the key foreign policy goals of my country. But to turn back to the conference, dear Excellencies, Ministers, Secretary General, friends, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, just a few remarks. Let me congratulate all of you who have participated in the debate during today's conference and who contributed to its overall success. It is a very important gathering for our region, as you know, and with the experience, dedication, readiness to implement the best practices and lessons learned, it all represents a real valuable achievement, fulfilling the very high expectations of this event. The analysis that was given during all the sessions of the conference, I think, encompasses various questions, right conclusions on defining the infrastructure gaps in Southeastern Europe region, which financing models should be applied, how to streamline existing infrastructure plans and investments in the region with the Belt and Road Initiative, how to get on board all interested financial institutions and entities are the best guarantee for the project's success. I think that we can say the conference has recognized the very significant potential for local enterprises, small and medium-sized enterprises, and has offered a way how to promote its development, to strengthen their skills, improve standards, and upgrade their competitiveness. It is also needless to underline the boost in our economic development that this project, supporting local enterprises and SMEs along China's Belt and Road Initiative in Southeast Europe, may provide. Let me once again thank the organizers, the main organizers, the Secretariat of the Initiative, EBRD, Italian government, and also extend my thanks to Chinese representatives, all the distinguished ministers, ambassadors, governmental and business community representatives of our region. Effort of all of you was tremendous and helped this be very successful conference. But this conference has to be understood only as a beginning from my point of view, and this is what I would like to stress at the very end. This should be a first great step of the entire project that we had here today before we see its implementation and the real transformation of our economies that these ideas in this project should bring. So I would like to also make a certain proposal on this line. I think it would be good to establish some kind of a follow-up mechanism for the project under the auspices of CEI, and I think that would be an appropriate way for all of us to be timely updated regarding all the significant activities that we've been discussing. We could have, I don't know, periodical meetings, maybe every 6 or 12 months. It should be decided by CEI states and the Secretariat, and also implementation of such great ideas that have been around, that this kind of project, including periodic reports, would be very, very useful, and I think would contribute to having much more valuable and good effects of this. So before I end, let me once again thank the city of Trieste and the region for having us here. I think this was a tremendous day, and let me also say that after this, the chairmanship of the initiative, the presidency of the CEI by Bosnia and Herzegovina, turns to next big event, which is a ministerial meeting that is to take place on June 16th in the city of Banja Luka in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And also I would like to say that for now the incoming information is very good. The preparations are already underway, and I am sure that part of the things that we've been discussing today will also be on the table in Banja Luka, and that we will continue with this chairmanship and with all our friends here in Secretariat and in member states going to the end of this year and hopefully to bring as much good effects as possible. So I thank you all once again.
It's needed at the end of a conference like this to close with some direction, some guideline. The positive effect of having such a tremendous event is to find for all of us, for who is in government as Igor, for who is working in the entrepreneur system, for who is working in the intellectual field, to find some guideline to go on. Positive message from this meeting. I would like to thank all the organizers because we learned a lot. I learned a lot, even if my fever helped me to double my thinking about this conference. But I would like to thank all, of course, the mayor of Trieste and the president of the region. I would like to thank the Ambassador Caracciolo, Secretary General of the Central European Initiative, the Vice President of the EBRD, Vincent Pillot, and I would like to thank this way to mix up different experience in a common vision. Why? If I should describe the geopolitical interest of my country, Italy, looking the next 20 years, looking where to bring the country in terms of public and private system, in this kind of multilateral framework, of course, we should be clear. The message to our entrepreneurs, to our students, to our investors should be clear on the guideline on which we are producing a geopolitical overview. In this conference, we have spoken about connection, hub, partnership. If I should sum up in terms of wording, are the three main words that I list in each debate. So means that our geostrategical interest as Italian, together with the multilateral framework within we are working, is to try to guide ourselves in the next 20 years. We should be honest, we are part of the history of the Mediterranean region. Mediterranean is wider in terms of historical linkage, is the Adriatic Sea, is the culture that Trieste is one of the capital. But the Mediterranean Sea from the 1st century is not the center where the history is produced. I want to say it's not the center of intellectual, cultural, and economical point of reference. This is not a negative, this is the reality of a world that if you look just on demographic base, we'll have in 20 years 57% of the population that are Asian. We'll see Africa that is going to double the population in the next 20 years. So we are not anymore the center of the production of the historical dimension and changes, but we have a particular element on which we have to point our finger, organize ourselves, speak with our friends like Igor, and try to organize a geopolitical interest for our country. We are an hub. The Mediterranean region nowadays is a center of connection. This was discussed at the first panel. Center of connection between Asia, between Africa, between the European continent. We don't have anymore the historical, let's say, linkage with the political dimension that was organizing the global order, but we are a point of connecting people, value, interest, and trade. The Mediterranean region was based in terms of culture about trade. The identity and the melting of the history of the Mediterranean region was the trade, the exchange. Something that we have to be proud even in times of war to reorganize and to increase in terms of value. With Igor, we usually discuss in the Western Balkan conference, the last was in Tirana, the next will be in Paris. In 2017 will be in Italy. I was speaking with my friend Roberto Antonioni, why not in Trieste? It could be but don't say that I propose, because otherwise the minister will be a bit pissed off. But it's the sense of a process that we are organizing. And the base of this Berlin process, together with the funds that we are organizing in the Central Eastern Initiative and the funds that are supporting the bank, together with the sub-regional platform of the Adriatic Ionian Forum, is not anymore a panel of discussing and meeting in terms of bilateral interest. Italy is strong in the Western Balkans. We are first in terms of trade in Albania. We are first in terms of trade in Serbia. But what we are discussing is organizing connection among us. Connection means try to reestablish a linkage between our society in a framework of geopolitical interest. And this framework is based on partnership. The second word, if I look at Africa, I think that the best partnership nowadays is between Italy and Maghreb. Because to speak about energy, infrastructure, food, the big issue of water, the big issue of connecting a continent that is double in terms of youth generation, the population, we need a partner, and our partner is the Maghreb. If I look Asia, and the big project that we have discussed about the belt and the road, I see a partner, a logical partner, that is the Western Balkan, the Eastern European side, the Southeast European friends. So means that if we work among us for connection, the first word, and if we invest in partnership, means we do together, and we reach together the big meeting point of the connection with Asia and Africa, we can even have a stable kind of increase of our, let's say, political dimension, but also in terms of our work in partnership. At the last meeting, Igor, a friend of mine from Serbia, she was afraid. Italy historically supports the enlargement of the European Union to the Balkan. We are convinced, we have a clear point, because it's a geopolitical, let's say, message in the geopolitical strategy of our country. And this friend said, the deputy foreign ministry of Serbia say, yes, but you know, our public opinion are waiting since time. And our public opinion, they are quite unsatisfied. They are even afraid of the European Union. I asked her to put in the mechanism of negotiation with the European Union, because unsatisfaction with the European Union is the lever and let's say, is the average criteria that you should have in the European Union. We are not afraid of this process, because we know that the enlarging to the Balkan, to the Western Balkan, is not just enriching in terms of number, but is enriching ourselves and the connection that we are creating in a geopolitical strategy. Connecting with Asia, what we have discussed today, connecting in terms of the big question that we have together, as I said before, also with the African continent, that is infrastructure, energy, food, and security. So, to be brief, I see from this event, and thank Ambassador Caracciolo, and let me thank also our friends from Ministero degli Affari Esteri e della Cooperazione, Minister Orizio, Consular Vattani, Dr. I don't want to be wrong on the name, by Dene, but I would like to thank all the people that intervene in this meeting, because we have a clear point on to support and to, let's say, give content to a geostrategical point of view. Italy in the next 20 years will be confronted with this. We'll try to change the dimension of the European Union, let them not to be afraid, this alliance of 28 countries, towards Africa and towards Asia. Because if we have problem nowadays, also migration is not just a question of organizing the solidarity, organizing the answer, but it's just a feeling to be afraid that a continent is pushing and boasting what they are their requests, and we are not able, like a big Switzerland, to address the reaction, the correct reaction. And when sometimes we discuss also about Asia, which is the big challenge for the next 20 years, how to reach not just in terms of exchange, but in terms of connection, the Asian continent, especially China, you listen at an atmosphere, you feel this atmosphere of to be afraid. We should give to the European Union not the sense of closing ourselves. And this means not just institutionally, because institutionally you can adapt. But if you don't have on the base a geopolitical point of view, of course, institutions are like for the people working in Brussels and nothing anymore. I hope that this conference and this idea of partnership, like we are doing, as I said, also for the Mediterranean region, towards Africa with our Maghreb friends, is a point of reference for our political life. for the life of the small and medium entrepreneurs that are risking every time, of course, going and moving themselves, for the infrastructural value like we have, like the port of Trieste, like all the already the connections that are in place. Imagine Trieste with the connection with the heart of Europe and all the Eastern and all the Western Balkan is an enormous, let's say, point of reference for the Italian political overview. But what we have discussed here, I'm going to conclude, is something also that gives a sense of what is for us the European Union. It's an historical process. Many people discussed the war in the Balkan in the 90s. Many people worked. Many Italians were involved. Let me also remind Marco Pannella, that today disappeared, that was there discussing and trying to stop the bloodshed of the Balkan region. And many discussed about that war in the 90s as the last war in Europe during the century. I think that if we look at history, if we look the character of that history, is the first war of this century in terms of fighting for identity, closing the border and cancelling the border, having such a tremendous, enormous disaster like in Srebrenica. Our history also from this century comes from that region, a region that produced more history than can consume, say, the British leader. But an history that is part of our historical belonging. Not in the last century, but in this century. Now it's time to pass from the wording to a concrete partnership, because for our country, for our national interest, and let me underline national interest, and for our value, the next 20 years should be played together with our European friends, not in defense, but trying to organize a dialogue, a partnership for the continent that they are moving. Thank you very much. Thank you, Igor, to be here with us.
Thank you very much, Undersecretary. The last words to send us home will come from our host here, CEI Ambassador Caracciolo Di Vietri. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you to Minister Zanarak. I don't want to be the anticlimax after the vibrant and encouraging words of State Secretary Amentola and of our chairman in exercise. So I will just limit myself to say two things. One, that this conference, I hope that our EBRD friends are happy, as we are happy, has brought about certainly a lot of food for thought for the future, which we have now as a task to implement and to translate into concrete endeavors. We have already some ideas. We will close the conference right now. We will go on working as of this evening on various ideas which matured and which even were floated publicly today. But I can't close officially the conference without thanks. Thanks to my staff, to the Secretariat staff, which has been really exemplary. I will not quote them name after name, but I should certainly mention the extraordinary help I had from Roberto Antonione, who is hiding somewhere, but who has been as instrumental as everybody else in this effort. I would also mention somebody who has unfortunately not been able to be present, who is Ettore Rosato, who assured us this extraordinary link with Rome and the government, which was represented here by Minister Del Rio and the Secretary of State. Certainly confirm our thanks to the city and to the region and their president and mayor. I would close with the mention of the three main sponsors, which have been of great help. Intesa San Paolo, Fondazione Cassa Risparmio Trieste, and Rizzani De Ecker, who was our host yesterday for a wonderful event. As I said, we'll go on working, but we consider that the session is closed. And thank you again, once again, to EBRD and to all our friends, including, last but not least, the very numerous and very qualified Chinese group and delegation, with whom we will continue examining and evaluating and assessing how a stronger and sort of more articulate cooperation can be developed in the future. Thank you to all of you, and have a nice come back home for those who are living for other countries. Thank you again. L'esprit de l'escalier, I didn't want to quote any names, but I had to quote that of Anne Engstrom, who was lended to us by EBRD and who was precious help.